Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score, your Drew Pyne Redemption edition, your Theo Weiss Revenge Game edition, your Missouri defeats Oklahoma edition. It was a long night. Nathan Hurst, how you doing?
Well, here we are 24 hours later, doing much better than I was when I saw you 12 hours ago, getting out of bed. The night took me away. As you can say, as the folks at home can tell from my voice, the night got away from me a little bit but I've recovered. I'm now back up to 85%, which for a 38-year-old is about peak efficiency at this point. So I think I'm doing good.
Yeah. Hell of a night. Game kicked off at 6:45. The game starts. We expected a rock fight. We kind of got one, and then it magically transformed into a turnover-induced shootout, which was incredible, improbable, and incredible. And so the game wraps up. I'm there with Adine and Quentin. We run down to get the interviews with Eli and Zion and Tristan Newsom and Drew Pyne and everybody. We come back up, we write our stories. I do a podcast with those guys, write a second story, close my laptop at like 12:50, don't get to bed till 2, then come back to St. Louis, and we're going to do this again. So that's my adventure. It was fun. Loved it. Loved getting back into Columbia. Saw a couple people there. That's always nice to see, including Mr. Hurst in the flesh. It was a good trip. This is one of those things that, we talked about fans circling this one on the calendar to make it count. I circled it the second it came out. I was like, I'm going down there and we're going to cover it. So glad we won. For those keeping track at home, for the instances in which Quentin, Adine, and myself are in the press box, Missouri is undefeated. Just throwing that out there. So we will take a GoFundMe to have us be sent to all of the games. But yeah, it's this is the one that really mattered. And for a team that was reeling from a shutout at Alabama, and then, the Brady Cook injury, and then a bye week. Nathan Hurst, I know every game is the most important, but this was an important one.
Oh, I mean, this was the one that you circle at the beginning of the season. Everyone circled. Fans circled it. The team circled it. Eli Drinkwitz circled it. If you were going to pick one game on the calendar to win, it was this one. And given how the rest of the season had gone so far, to drop this one would have been very painful for everybody, especially the team, but fans as well. Fans, those of us that have been around for a long time, have seen a lot of the past Mizzou OU matchups that have not gone in Mizzou's favor. Some by blowout, some by heartbreak. It would have hurt a lot, especially in a year where Oklahoma is very down. To not find a way to come out with the victory against this Oklahoma team, of any Oklahoma teams, of any of them, would be especially rough. So I feel much more joy and jubilation than relief, but there is some relief in there as well, especially where compared to where my emotions were at about the 2-minute mark immediately following the fumble and fumble return for a touchdown by Oklahoma. Was about creeping into some dark places at that point. So it's amazing how things can turn. I did a little bit of math before we started recording here, and by my tally, I've watched or listened to on the radio 249 Mizzou games as a Mizzou fan. So going back to 2004, which is really the first year I became a fan in earnest, and there has not been a single game that has flipped on its head in terms of how it was playing out, the game script, if you will, the flow of the game from the first 3 quarters to the fourth quarter, and flipped on its head in that way. Never been a game, win or lose, for Mizzou that has played out that way. So, things, talk about unique. That was something new, and it was fun to watch. Even if Mizzou was ended up on the other end of it, it still would have been one of those you remember for a long time, just because of how wacky and crazy and improbable. I would say improbable from one drive to the next. How improbable every turn the last 15 minutes of that game took.
Oh, I mean, Eli Drinkwitz stood at that podium and he was asked how many times he's had a game like that and he's been coaching since 2005. So basically, right when you started counting, he said he's never had a game flip so many times, so significantly and that late in a game. Never had it. And this is a guy who coached high school, right? For a long time. That's where that stuff usually happens. And he's been at Auburn and Arkansas State, Boise State, and NC State, App State. He said never experienced anything like that. So you are in good company there. The ending is, I think, the key takeaway, because that's how Missouri won the game. But before we get to the ending, let's talk about kind of the undercard, but still very important story, which is the redemption of Drew Pyne. There's a couple of ways that I could start this. Let's just say that what we have seen from Drew Pyne so far this year, before we entered the Oklahoma game, gave us no confidence in Drew Pyne being able to captain this team to a victory, just flat out. We said it on the podcast on Wednesday. I specifically said if Drew Pyne plays, Mizzou will not win this game. And I stand by that decision. We were shown something new in this game that we had not seen before. Otherwise, against teams that had a pulse that counted, he was a sub 50% completion percentage with like 3 interceptions and no touchdowns, no scoring. That's not a quarterback that's going to win against Oklahoma, whether they have, an offense or not. And for the first 2.5 quarters, that's basically what Drew Pyne was. He had one good pass to Theo Weiss in the second quarter, but it was just nothing was happening. And then we get into the third, and he finds rhythm. He runs for a first down. He starts throwing. He's connecting on the passes, and he leads Mizzou to the tying touchdown after getting after Jamal Roberts was stripped and had a return for a touchdown. And really, it was Drew Pyne that put Mizzou in a position where that final strip sack with the scoop and score could happen. And I don't know where this guy has been. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. Obviously, everyone cited his play at Notre Dame and 8-2 record, but we had not seen it. And last night we saw it, and boy, it came at the exact opportune time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everything that we had talked about, and I don't think we or anyone, really any Missouri beat writer or, pontificator all week was unfair in their characterizations of Drew Pyne in terms of what we had seen from him so far as a Mizzou Tiger, what to expect if he was going to start. And, I was right there with you in terms of if he was going to play this game, Mizzou was not going to have a good chance to win. And for the first, as you said, 2.5 quarters, that was very much the case. I mean, it was playing out exactly how we had feared that it would go for a few different reasons. First and foremost, play calling, very conservative, very, nothing interesting, nothing exciting, nothing risk-taking at all in the first half. And I'll, to a large part, you can kind of understand that, knowing it was going to be a defensive battle, and which is what it very much was until the last quarter of the game. They came out and really wanted to run the ball, which they didn't do well, but they kept doing it, and they kept doing it. And God bless them, they had 46 running plays in the game, so they stuck with it. They did not throw the ball downfield. Excuse me. The few times they did throw it were 5-yard screen passes or just nothing downfield. So they were taking no chances at all, and really not even giving Pyne an opportunity to excel or not excel. And then, at some point, eventually they decided they had to open it up because there was no other choice. You're down by 9-3. You're going to have to score a touchdown because you're not going to go on 3 field goal drives. At least you wouldn't think so at the time. They opened it up. Something clicked. His confidence ratcheted up. And I think you drew it back to ran for a first down. I think that might have gotten the blood flowing a little bit. Mm-hmm. Hit a couple passes. Moved the ball down the field on that first drive there in the third quarter, the first scoring drive there in the third quarter. Really nice play design to draw up to get the ball to Theo Weiss in space. He made some guys miss. Touchdown. Boom. Boom. And then before you know it, 2 of the next, I think the Mizzou had the ball 4 more times, and 2 more of those times were touchdowns. One was a punt, one was a fumble. So, I mean, as soon as something clicked, his confidence level changed. Mm-hmm. And then I think Kirby's confidence level in him changed because all of a sudden I mean, they're taking shots down the field. Now they didn't hit on all of them, but they were there. They were taking them. And then on that drive to tie the game, hit that big shot down to Luther Burden, who made an outstanding catch. Great throw, great catch.
No.
That's probably, if there weren't for 3 or 4 other really big plays after that, that's the play of the game.
No.
Until 2 plays later when Theo Weiss just makes an outrageous catch in the corner, which is to give props to Drew Pyne, that throw is not one that we have ever seen Brady Cook make. Brady Cook has made some great throws in his time at Mizzou. He has never made the corner fade route on a dime, right where it has to be, over the defender, the only place that it could be put in the corner where your receiver can make a play on it, get his foot down, and then the receiver, of course, has to follow through and make it, which Theo did. And so that was something new that I did not expect, did not know that Drew had in his bag. And he had it at least last night. So, props to him, because if someone told me that, if you told me before the game or during the game as it was happening or after the game that, I knew he had it in him, I knew this was something that they could pull out of him, you are lying through your teeth, out of your mouth. And maybe Eli Drinkwitz can say that, he had the faith in him and he has to say that. I don't believe that he had that. He thought that was the case, or would be able to be the case down the stretch either. I know they had a game plan they put together. Here's how we want it to happen. But there's no way that even the coaches would have expected that it would have gone that way, because they probably would have opened it up sooner, to be honest, if they thought that it could have turned out that way.
I mean, yes. And without sitting in the meeting rooms, we don't know what goes into the planning and what their thought process was. Certainly Eli Drinkwitz wanted to come out and stunt on the media for how he treated his quarterback, which that's his prerogative. He won with Drew Pyne throwing touchdown passes. So sure, knock yourself out. But yeah, to your point, you would have had him, the offense would have looked different, just flat out. And I was watching the broadcast. Obviously you don't get to hear it when you're sitting in the press box. So I was watching it today as I was charting the game. And in it, I think it was Cole Kubelik said that when he was talking to Kirby Moore, Kirby told him during the bye week and this week of practice that they had actually gone through Drew Pyne's Notre Dame tape, sat with him and said, hey, what do you like to do? And they picked out 6 passing concepts that he really liked to run at Notre Dame, and they installed them at Mizzou. So one of my big takeaways was that I said that Kirby Moore was not getting very creative in how he deployed this offense. So credit to him for finding something that Drew Pyne liked. You should be doing that anyway. Just that's how coordinating an offense works. But they did. I didn't see anything differently. Now, obviously, me sitting up, watching on TV or sitting in the box, I'm not going to be able to tell you why this route concept is different than what we've done before. But there's a lot more utilization of Luther Burden in motion pre-snap, bringing him back and flipping him back like in a little whip route. They really weren't forcing it to him as much, but they did have a lot of. I mean, it was until the second quarter until Drew Pyne threw a pass more than 10 yards down the field. So, you don't know how these things go, but he brings to the table a more polished passing game, or at least that's what the claim was. Something that Brady Cook doesn't have, because Brady Cook doesn't need it. When you get into the red zone, Brady is a threat to run it in, and he can. So you don't need to spot, a pass and dot it right in the corner for your receiver. You just run it in. And, Drew Pyne said himself, he's not going to get you, 50 yards or a touchdown, but he'll get you a first down. And he can throw it into a corner. And that's why scouts liked him coming out of high school. That's why he was offered in 8th grade by schools, including Missouri. He had that pinpoint accuracy which we just had not seen so far. So he has that skill set, and we saw it on display when we had not seen it displayed at all. And yeah, I'm really glad he did. I will point out though, success is skill plus luck. And that pass to Luther Burden was a prayer of a pass. It was high, it was deep, and everybody was hoping, including Drew Pyne, that Luther was going to come down with it. And he did. But that is a risky throw that got lucky with some skill from Luther's side. If that drops, then nothing else happens after it, but he caught it and he did. So this isn't like some perfectly manicured game plan that Drinkwitz has just been waiting to unveil. Like, he also had some luck, and that's fine. I just prefer that he admitted as much.
Yeah, I mean, it all worked out. It's nice. It's luck. Also, you've got, just some kaiju of receivers to you can throw it down to, and it's not as much luck as Luther's down there somewhere. He's going to make a play for me, and there's some hope involved there. There's some prayers involved there, but it's there have been other Mizzou teams where you're not going to have the same hope, and when you're in the past when you're throwing it down to hope. I'm not going to name names, but in case is this guy really going to come down with the ball for me? Maybe, maybe not. You have a little better chance when it's Luther Burden or Theo Weiss that are down there trying to catch up.
Yeah. And the other thing that Drinkwitz was pounding his chest about Drew Pyne, which again, it's well earned. I don't think it's fair how he characterized how we critiqued his quarterback, but whatever. He also shouted out the guys who stepped up in the face of injury. So Connor Tollison goes out with an injury late. Drake Heismeyer goes in, and I did not notice him at all. Caden Green, he left with an injury. Mitch Walters comes in. He's been the sixth lineman all year, and he came in and filled in just fine. That's great. You had Josh Manning. You didn't really see him targeted all that much, but he didn't really take anything away either. It was guys coming in, making impacts, or at least being replacement level on one of the most important games of the year, and they did great with that. So it was tremendous to see. This offense is, I still don't think it's going to be as good with Drew Pyne now as it was with Brady Cook. But we saw it. Sometimes that's all you need. And if that's what this coaching staff has been seeing in practice, then I certainly understand that. But you don't let reporters or media into your practices, so we don't get to see it. So we got to take the field, right, to see it. And we finally saw it. Now, here's the problem, Mr. Pyne. Now you have to do it again because we've seen you do it. So now you got to do it again. And now there's full game tape on him too. So I'll be really curious to see how the game plan evolves as we close out with these last three games here. Any final thoughts on Drew Pyne before we move on to other stories from the game?
Well, I think we got Drew Pyne pretty much nailed. Great job, Drew. Player of the game. Raise him up, give him his flowers. But we got to do it again though, because if Brady Cook didn't play this week, the chances that he plays next week are pretty slim at this point as well. Not impossible. Right. But I am not counting on it at this point.
Yeah. So then we get to Theo Weiss, the Oklahoma transfer who'd been at Oklahoma for 4 years before coming here. Made an impact. And in the post-game conferences, I know for sure Zion Young mentioned this, and I think a couple others did too, but they're all like, dude, Theo was like, he let us know that this was a very important game and to get locked in for it. So he was turned up, and on the field before the game, you saw him like he was dancing around like he usually does. There's some intent there. He seemed very fired up, which makes sense. You always want to go up against your old team. You want to show them what's up. During player introductions, though, I would say Caden Green got a larger chorus of boos than Theo Weiss did from the Oklahoma side. But in his post-game conference, Theo Weiss specifically cited the OU fans because somebody asked him, hey, what's the difference between your friends that are still at Oklahoma and the fans? And he's like, well, my friends were happy to see me and the fans booed me. That's all I'm going to say about that. And after the game, Theo Weiss ran over to the Oklahoma section, the visitors section, flexed at him a little bit, threw his gloves into the crowd and moved on. So of course, Oklahoma fans, because they lost, are calling Bush League for character issues because they lost the game again. Losers whine. But it was important to Theo, and he had one of the more incredible touchdown catches I've seen in a Missouri uniform in the past 10 years. What did you think of Theo's performance overall?
I mean, it was great. He did not touch the ball often. He only had 4 catches, but he made a big impact with all 4 of those catches. They were all really big catches in really big spots. He had the touchdown, which was a 18 to 20-ish yard screen pass that he broke several tackles and gave the Tigers their first lead. And honestly, at the time, I thought might have been the only lead they needed based on how the defense was playing and how the game was going. Mm-hmm. Then the next time, well, actually, right after the strip touchdown for Oklahoma, he comes right back out big slant, takes it 25 yards to really get that drive moving, get some momentum going, try to get the team back in the, going in the right direction. So that was a really big play. And then that second touchdown in the corner, that was just ridiculous. Ridiculous. I was sitting in that end zone or standing in that end zone, and that ball went up, and I was like, there's an overthrow. That's out of bounds. It'll be okay. It'll be third and goal. And that's what's going in my head as the ball was still in the air. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, he caught that. There's no way he was in bounds, though. And then I see the ref throw his hands up, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, they gave it to us. Well, there's no way his foot was actually in bounds. Let's look at the replay. They look at the replay, and his foot was in bounds. And, it was.
I mean, you had this much black turf, and that was enough.
Well, I can think of Chase Kaufman has made a few plays like that in the time that I've followed Mizzou. I think maybe once or twice, like a Bud Sasser has pulled down something similar. But that's, you count on one hand the number of guys that have made plays like that in terms of acrobatics in the end zone for a touchdown. But none of those were in the spot that one was in terms of giving Mizzou the lead, or at least tying the game at that point. It was remarkable in every sense of the word.
So, and he was turned up for it. I know somebody on Twitter said that they had been mentoring Theo since he was 9. Threw some shade at the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma staff and how they treated Theo as he was coming back from injury. Gave some shade to the Brent Venables staff for how they handled his transfer. And of course, Jeff Lebby, who was the OC at Oklahoma and is now the head coach at Mississippi State, for allegedly playing down his abilities once he entered the portal. So, the Theo Weiss is just going Kill Bill. He's got his list and he's checking it off. He's got Oklahoma check. We got Jeff Lebby coming up next. I mean, Theo, junior and senior, just heads up. Shane Beamer was on that Oklahoma staff too. So if you want to get super pissed and have a great game against South Carolina, we'd love it. That'd be great. But yeah, it's motivation's a killer thing for college athletes, and then Theo certainly had it. So it was great to see that. And really for all the guys, we talked about, JJ Hester went from Mizzou to Oklahoma, but you have Luther Burden, who was committed and then came to Mizzou, Caden Green, who was actually at Oklahoma and then transferred to Mizzou. And then of course, Williams Winery, who was thinking about going to Oklahoma and ended up going to Mizzou. Theo had the best game of that group. And I was really happy to see that. So good for him. Really, the other story that came out of this was Missouri's defense. And that's probably the third build thing on purpose, just because Oklahoma's offense is so bad. But also Mizzou's defense made them look even dumber than what I anticipated coming in. Defensive line was killer, man. Eli Drinkwitz said his defense kicked ass. I mean, how impressed were you with the performance you saw last night?
They were as good as I had hoped that they would be. They did everything they needed to do to win that game. And to be honest, I mean, you look at the way that Oklahoma scored in every time they scored in the game, minus the one touchdown drive they had kind of answering our second touchdown drive. That was their only legitimate drive that they had the whole game. And that was a drive. They found something working on the left side, running over their left guard there. And thankfully we didn't have to figure that out because they didn't really have a chance to do it anymore after that one drive. But minus that one drive, I mean, the opening field goal they had was off of a fake punt. And so the defense has already done their job, gotten off the field. And then there was a fake punt that got them down. And they got back on the field, bowed up in the red zone, stuffed them field goal. Next time down, there was something else weird the next time down. Was it a penalty on a punt return or something that set them up across midfield at that point, and then they were able to get a field goal. And then the weird clock management thing at the end of the first half to get them their third field goal of the game. So I mean, that's 9 points there that could have easily turned into 14 if they didn't bow up when they needed to. Second half, I mean, a punt, the one long touchdown drive. Then they came up with the big play at the end to win the game when you needed it. 4 fumbles. We had talked on Wednesday before the game about how Oklahoma had some really positive fumble luck and just turnover luck in general. And that the worm turned on them. And you start with crediting the defense for forcing those fumbles, for hitting them hard. for figuring out that Jackson Arnold has better fingers, and can we grease that pig a little bit, because he really wants to put the ball on the ground, and we obliged him. So they came up with the plays when they needed to do it, and there's not a whole lot to say. I mean, scheme wise, I don't think they did anything overly unique or manicured for this specific game. They just said our front is better than your offensive line, our secondary is better than your receivers, and we're not going to give the quarterback enough time to sit back and find any open receivers, even if they happen to get open. So They only had 3 sacks, which going in, I kind of hoped we might have had a few more, but a big part of that was they were getting rid of the ball really fast. Oklahoma knew that they could not hold up in against the pass rush. So there were no deep shots. And that's the one weak spot we found on this defense, is giving up, a broken deep shot here or there. They didn't even give Oklahoma the opportunity to do that, because there was no time. It was catch the snap, 1 step, 2 step, get rid of the ball. So 3 sacks is actually pretty good considering the fact that they were getting rid of the ball so fast.
I mean, Oklahoma was down to their backup left tackle. Their starting left tackle wasn't all that great, so that their backup was a redshirt freshman. And this was apparently this is the 9th different offensive line combination that they've had all year. Just so you know, that was their 9th game. So just throwing that out there. It's once Seth Luttrell was fired, former Mizzou tight end coach Joe John Finley became coordinator, and he's like, screw it, Jackson Arnold's going to run, and we're going to get rid of it super quick. And that's what they did. The sack numbers weren't there. I agree with that. The pressure was there, though, to the point where Jackson Arnold was like running out of clean pockets, or relatively clean pockets. He did not have trust, certainly on the left side, but really for his entire group in front of him to protect him from Mizzou's pass rush. He would bail so fast. And then, either part of that or just who he is in general, he would get out so fast that he had trouble securing the ball. Eyes were down, and he'd forget, to handle it, or like when he, like that on the first drive when he just dropped it out of nowhere. Obviously the strip sack, like the dude could not hold on to the ball, and it wasn't raining. It wasn't wet on the field when I was on there, and didn't have no precipitation happened from when I got off there to back on the field. Like, does he have small hands? He's a 5-star high school quarterback out of Texas. Like, I don't know what was going on, if it was mental or physical, but like 6 fumbles, man, 4 lost, including the punt. The runs that they would undo. That was terrible. I thought Mizzou could be +2, but boy, it was bad.
Yeah. Oklahoma's got a lot of problems across the board, and their defense is in pretty good shape. That said, they gave up 3 long touchdown drives to Drew Pyne, so I think they might be kind of at a breaking point themselves. They have a lot of talent on that side of the ball, but their offense, I mean, it's bleak. I'm not really sure what talent they have to point to. They have some receivers that they like, but you can't get on the wall, which sounds a little familiar, to be honest. To be fair, their best running back was out for this game. He was injured. Really, their top 2, because Gavin Sawchuk was out as well, and he was their starting running back last year. So give them a little bit of credit there. But yeah, it's bleak. I can see why they fired their offensive coordinator, but I'm not sure that really is just deck chairs on the Titanic at this point.
I mean, it's 2012 Mizzou in every sense of the word. Injuries. Now, they didn't lose their quarterback, but they're losing everybody else on offense, and the defense has to hold out. So it sucks. But no tears lost for them, because Oklahoma, you suck forever and ever. This is a team on a breaking point. I saw a couple of their beat writers walking around, and they were just like, I hate this season. Like, they literally said, I hate this season. Which I get. You are 1-5, right? Because they beat Auburn. So 1-5 in the SEC play.
And really should be 0-6, because that the flukiest of fluke wins against Auburn. I mean, Auburn had game control the entire time until the very end of that game.
Yeah, it's just Yeah, Drew Pyne moved the ball on one of the better defenses in the country. If that doesn't tell you that they're gassed, then I don't know what does. But again, credit to Drew Pyne. He made good moves, good reads, had some swag to him. Offense showed up, delivered for him. I will say this offensive line is still a problem. Pressure up the middle, that's killer, and that's what they do. Heading into this game, the interior offensive line had given up 28 pressures, while the defensive tackles have given up 17, and 15 of those came from the left side of the left tackle position. So like this offense, we talk about Brady Cook and his struggles with throwing the ball. Offensive line has got a problem, a part of that too. But this game, they were able to get around that, deliver as the game went on, and get enough points to win. So it's just one of those team efforts. I could not believe what I was watching. Not only the Theo Weiss touchdown, but then the scoop and score. I said this last night on Quentin and Adeen's podcast. When that false start on the extra point occurred and they moved them back 5 yards in the north end zone, I was like, well, certainly hope they don't miss it and cause this to be a 7-point game instead of an 8-point game. And lo and behold, it happened. Thankfully, that didn't matter. But you get into these situations when you're a Mizzou fan for long enough where you think that they're going to gack it away in just impressively painful fashion. And if it wasn't the missed extra point, it was certainly the fumble and the scoop and score by Billy Bowman Jr. I was like, well, that any team before a couple of years ago, that would be it. That's how this game ends. And you put up a valiant fight, and then you exited quietly into the night. And for all of Eli Drinkwitz's eccentricities, his weirdness, especially how he manages the game, and at the end of the half, his teams do not give up. And they went right down the field and scored, and then Zion Young got the gift from Tristan Newsom. I cannot believe the things that we have seen from this team in the past couple of years. The 61-yard field goal, which again was 61 yards because of Eli Drinkwitz's mistake. So let's not rule that out. But 4th and 17 against Florida, you beat Ohio State. Brady Cook goes into the hospital and comes back and beats Auburn. And now you have Drew Pyne beating Oklahoma with all the craziness that happened there. Eli Drinkwitz teams, they play, every game is close, and it's frustrating as hell, but it gives you these types of moments that are so impactful and impressive. Whether Mizzou makes it to the playoff or not, we're going to remember this game forever. And that's super cool. And credit to Drinkwitz and his teams for not giving up and creating magical moments.
Yeah, I mean, really, if the game is close, and 95% of his games are close, if the game is close, you at this point have to feel good about Mizzou's chances. Now, and they're now 18-4 in their last 22 games. So going back to the beginning of last season, they are 18-4. 2 of those losses were blowouts. 2 of those losses were close games, where I think may have ended up being double digits, but that's just because of a late turnover at the very end of the game in the case of LSU and Georgia. But very much right in the game there. So you're looking at 2 losses in close games. The rest, all these other games, close games that Mizzou has pulled out and won. This game, the Auburn game, the Ohio State game, the Florida game. Right. So that's a complete flip from Drinkwitz teams in 2021 and 2022, where they're if they're close, they're going to find a way to not make it happen. But it's completely flipped. So kind of looking forward, if the rest of the season, if Mizzou can keep their games close, you have to feel good about it. South Carolina's found some interesting ways to lose close games this year. They're a good team, but they've also yacked away a couple games that they easily could have won. Stay close in that game. Let the other team put the ball on the ground so you can scoop it and score it at the end of the game. That can't happen when you're down 40-10 or 34-0. But if you're close, it's right there for you, and they've found ways to do that more often than not.
No. I know Eli Drinkwitz talked about the playoff in his post-game on-field interview. I guess, yes, if you go 10-2 and teams keep losing like they did yesterday, I suppose it's possible. I'm really not going to sweat it. If you go 10-2, Mizzou's best win would either be a 4-loss South Carolina team that we're assuming wins out, or a Vanderbilt team who has also lost 4 games.
It would be South Carolina because they definitively beat Vanderbilt in Nashville last night. So South Carolina is, especially how they're playing at this point in the season, would be far and away their best win.
Yeah,
and there's really at this point there are 2 pathways to the playoff, and they're both incredibly minuscule to the point where it's barely even worth discussing them. But one, they go 10-2. The SEC cannibalizes itself, and there's a lot of 3-loss SEC teams, and the committee says, well, we can't pick, so we're going to put them all in, and they put 5 SEC teams in, and Mizzou gets in there. The second one is there ends up being a wacky, and there is an opportunity for a wacky 6, 7, 8 team tiebreaker scenario at the top of the SEC. If there are a bunch of 2-loss SEC teams, there's an opportunity at this point, the way it stands now, there could be a 5, 6, 7 team tie with 2 losses at the top of the SEC. In which case, if you win that tiebreaker, and you'd have to go down there's a whole long list of tiebreakers that they have. And one of them might be what the phase of the moon is, and all the weird stuff, or even a coin toss at some point. Win that tiebreaker, get into the SEC championship game. It gets another team who perhaps isn't, not a Georgia or Texas or whatever, but that also won a weird tiebreaker, and then beat them. Then all of a sudden you are a top 4 seed in the playoff. Now, is that likely? No, but it is still on the table. Because they only have 2 SEC losses, it is still on the table. So you cannot say it's impossible.
You're right. Improbable, but not impossible. And those are 2 different things. So I'm not going to sweat it. I'm really not.
No, I've already written it off. If it happens, then that's great, but it's not. So
no. Well, it's incredible. Watching Zion Young rumble into the end zone. Again, we're talking about things that are improbable. That's right up there. I did not anticipate seeing 2 scoop and scores within 2 minutes in the same game. Did not anticipate that happening.
2-minute drill led by Drew Pyne, which really only took 1:15 or whatever in between those 2. So, that sequence was not. It was a 2-minute sequence, and it was not what I had on my bingo card.
Absolutely wild. Cannot believe what I saw. And they keep winning, and it's never pretty. It's never pretty because your close wins, against Oklahoma and Florida also mean you get close wins over like Central Michigan and Middle Tennessee and Memphis. But just win. Have competent quarterback play, have reliable special teams, or at least a kicker, and try to manage the clock the best you can. And I don't know. I'm not going to say that actually. He's just got a really good track record in close games. Let's just put it that way. And I don't know how he keeps doing it, but he does. And sometimes it's his own damn fault, but it always happens because he just builds a really good team that's 100% bought in no matter what, which that's a nice thing to have.
It is. But don't think like Mizzou didn't necessarily, there some luck in this game. Yes. But that happens in every football game. Oklahoma got lucky too, that Jamal Roberts put the ball on the ground, and they were right there to pick it up and run it in for a touchdown as well. Mizzou had a 77% post-game win expectancy in this game. So if you don't know what that means, it's a Bill Connolly statistic where he throws all the everything that happened in the game, the turnovers, the success rates, everything, and comes up with one number that says, if this game was played 100 times, how many times would Mizzou win it based on if it plays out in a similar fashion each way. Each time Mizzou had a 77% win expectancy. So they would have won that game 77 out of 100 times based on how it was played. So they were the better team in that game. Now, fumbling the ball 4 times by Oklahoma, that plays a big role in that for sure. But Mizzou had a 4.8 points per opportunity while Oklahoma only had a 3.2. So, that's significant. Wow. They had better starting field position. Oklahoma actually had a slightly better success rate offensively, which I found a little surprising. They were at 36%. Missouri was at 34. Mm-hmm. But really, that was shifted on their last drive where they went down and scored their one touchdown. They had a 52% success rate the fourth quarter, but really it was just that one drive. The rest was all like 35, 20, 18. So Mizzou was just kind of more consistent across the board throughout the game. So Mizzou was the better team in that game. The statistics prove it. So it was not just luck that Zion Young picks up a ball, walks in for a touchdown. I mean, there's a lot that goes into getting to that point in the game.
Yeah. And Mizzou created explosive plays, and Oklahoma really did not do that. So
yes,
that also helps too. Yeah, it's a great game. And now you've got momentum. You're 7-2. You are heading into South Carolina and Columbia East, followed up by Mississippi State and Arkansas. We'll get to that, but we're all feeling a lot better about our team today than we were, heading into Saturday. And again, Drew Pyne has shown us an ability to do something. So now we're feeling good and expecting some more. We'll see what happens to Brady Cook. We'll see how the quarterback position gets managed. Those are all problems for future Nate and Nathan to go over. But for now, as your fans, your team beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 0-2 in their last 2 trips to Faurot Field. Just want to throw that out there. And yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day to beat the Sooners. And stop hearing Boomer Sooner 50,000 times. But that's going to be our show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter at Matt and H.E. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rockin' flagship at Rockin' Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockin' Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, M-I-Z.
Z-O-U.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.